So White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt announced that the Associated Press has been banned from...
The View just got hit with an $800 million lawsuit, and the backlash is only getting louder. Are you tired of watching mainstream media tear down conservative women while pretending it's just jokes? Hit that subscribe button, because we're pulling receipts, naming names, and showing you the side of the story they're trying to bury.
It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to...
When news broke that Karoline Leavitt had filed an $800 million lawsuit against The View for defamation and character assassination, the hosts didn't skip a beat. They reacted with mockery and disbelief. Joy Behar brushed it off on air with a smirk, saying, "Oh, please, this is just another PR stunt," waving her hand like the whole thing was beneath her. Whoopi Goldberg, cool and dismissive, muttered, "We've seen worse," like lawsuits were just part of her morning routine. And Sunny Hostin, the legal commentator of the table, confidently proclaimed, "It has no legs. It'll be tossed out before it even hits court." But that cocky calm didn't last.
The White House cannot dictate how news organizations report the news, nor should it penalize...
Sources say there was a noticeable shift behind the scenes once the hosts realized the lawsuit wasn't empty talk. One insider revealed there was panic in the writers' room. You could feel it. Everyone knew this was serious. Emails and Slack messages obtained by Leavitt's team painted a picture of calculated attacks and orchestrated narrative spins. With damning lines like, "Get her flustered early," and "Let her dig her own grave," the host's casual attitude started to crack. This wasn't about ratings anymore. It was about reputation, receipts, and real legal consequences.
We do have the Constitution still, at least in the United States. And, I think the First Amendment is the First Amendment because it's one of the most.
The hosts of The View didn't hold back when criticizing Karoline Leavitt, each one taking aim with snarky and dismissive remarks. Joy Behar started the attack, smirking as she said, "She got the job because of her looks. Let's be real, she's a pretty young woman, and that's how she got it." Whoopi Goldberg added her signature sarcasm, commenting, "A press secretary at 27? Please, sounds like the job was handed to her with a side of smile and wave, sweetie."
Isn't it rich that The View is saying she got the job based on looks when DEI is all about based on looks?
Ana Navarro, known for her sharp political commentary, took a jab at Karoline's political leanings, stating, "This is the kind of girl who's all about the aesthetic of politics, not the substance. The job was given to her because she checked the box, not because she's qualified." Finally, Sunny Hostin made a pointed remark, saying, "Karoline Leavitt represents everything wrong with this new wave of political hires. It's about optics, not ability." These comments were not only dismissive, but carried an underlying tone of condescension and judgment.
Not have a low-level district court judge filing an injunction to usurp the executive authority of the President of the...
Karoline Leavitt didn't take the hosts' comments lying down. In a fiery response, she called out their remarks, asserting that their criticism was rooted in ageism and sexism. Karoline fired back. "It's disappointing that in 2025, these women still think the best way to critique a young woman is to undermine her based on her appearance and age." She further emphasized that her qualifications were being ignored, pointing out, "I earned my position through hard work and dedication, not because of my looks or age." Karoline expressed frustration at the hosts' dismissive tone, insisting that their comments only perpetuate harmful stereotypes about young women in politics.
Like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that...
She made it clear that she wouldn't be defined by their biased assumptions and was determined to prove her critics wrong. As the discovery phase of Karoline Leavitt's $800 million lawsuit against The View loomed, ABC found itself in a state of escalating crisis. The network, initially dismissive of the allegations, began to grasp the gravity of the situation as internal communications surfaced, revealing a potentially orchestrated effort to undermine Leavitt during her appearance on the show.
Really pissed me off And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you.
An internal memo from ABC's HR department, dated months before the incident, cautioned, recent conservative interviews appear aggressively biased, may indicate editorial direction or host prejudice. Another document highlighted a visible pattern of hostile setups toward right-wing guests. These revelations painted a picture of a deliberate strategy rather than spontaneous commentary. The lawsuit's implications sent shockwaves through ABC's ranks. Producers and staff reportedly began deleting messages and reviewing past communications, fearing what might emerge during the legal proceedings. One producer, speaking anonymously, admitted, "We thought this was just another segment. Now it's a legal nightmare."
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans.
ABC's legal team, recognizing the potential fallout, expressed concerns about the network's exposure. An insider noted, "The evidence suggests a coordinated effort which could be damaging in court." The network's leadership convened emergency meetings to strategize, with discussions reportedly including the possibility of settling the case to avoid further reputational harm. As the legal battle intensified, the public's attention remained fixed on the unfolding drama, with many questioning the ethical standards of media outlets and the accountability of their hosts. The outcome of this case could set a precedent for how media organizations handle controversial content and the responsibilities they bear in their portrayals of public figures.
There's a long list of that, both of Trump's previous press secretaries, females, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany.
When The View finally addressed the lawsuit on air after days of eerie silence, the vibe was unmistakably different. Gone were the cheeky jokes and smug one-liners. Instead, the show opened with visible tension, sidelong glances, and hosts visibly rattled. Whoopi Goldberg led the segment with none of her usual bravado. She avoided direct eye contact with the camera and muttered, "Things may have gotten a little out of hand," as if trying to walk back the fire without fanning it further.
Absolutely not. Let me be unequivocally clear about that. And watching this clip,
Joy Behar, usually the loudest voice in the room, looked visibly shaken. "I just don't know why this has to go so far," she said, her tone soft and unsure. Sunny Hostin, known for confidently swinging legal jargon, leaned in close and added, "Karoline, if you're watching, maybe there's a better way to solve this." But the audience wasn't buying it. Twitter lit up with comments like, "Too late. You bullied her on air. Now you want a kumbaya circle." Media outlets from Fox News to The Hill ran the story, amplifying conservative voices who rallied behind Leavitt.
They have shamed him, they have lied about him consistently on their show, and it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th.
Fans didn't just sit back and watch the chaos, they showed up and made noise. Across YouTube, Reddit and Instagram, comment sections were lit with bold reactions and full-on support for Karoline Leavitt. One fan wrote, "Karoline is making history. First press secretary to sue The View into silence." Another chimed in, "Y'all tried to play her like she's dumb. She played y'all like chess." The sentiment was clear. This wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a cultural power move. One user summed it up perfectly, saying, "If it takes $800 million to make you respect someone's name, so be it."
Like showdown every day in the press briefing room is not for the faint of heart. Luckily, Karoline Leavitt does not.
Meanwhile, Leavitt herself stayed quiet. No press circuits, no self-congratulatory posts. Just one calm statement dropped on X. "We are moving forward as planned." No fluff, no drama. And somehow that silence hit harder than any headline. In a world full of noise, her stillness screamed power. Meanwhile, inside ABC, it's chaos. PR teams are running simulations. Lawyers are flying in from New York and LA. Advertisers are pulling out. Execs are holding reputational risk escalation meetings twice a day.
She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I always have friends where I work, and if I don't have friends at the job, I will not keep the job.
I think I'm going to miss the friends that I have here.
Some are whispering about killing The View altogether. Others are talking about rebrand, cast rotation, or even cancelling live shows for a while. It's not just a legal loss, it's a brand identity collapse. The View was supposed to be untouchable. Now it's cracking at the foundation. And Leavitt? She ain't even gone scorched earth yet. She's just walking slow, careful, and precise. Like a chess queen watching pawns self-destruct. Let's be real. Karoline's not just fighting for herself. She's fighting for every woman who's been mocked on air and gaslit off air. Every conservative who got dragged by elite media with zero consequences. Every new mother who had to show up polished and perfect just to be taken seriously.
Yesterday, the new White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, gave her very first press conference where she announced that they're adding extra seats to the briefing room. Take a look.
It's essential to our team that we share President Trump's message everywhere and adapt this White House to the new media landscape in 2025. This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment, so it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists who...
She worked hard. College at 19. Ran for Congress at 25. Trump's press secretary while pregnant and still crushing it in front of cameras. And for The View to try to reduce that to a cheap DEI hire? Nah. The court might decide the dollars. But the public already picked a side. What happens next? Will The View finally own up and apologise on air? Or will they double down and risk exposing even more behind-the-scenes chaos in court?
I have a question, which is why I was leading us in this direction.
Yeah.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason. Because black people couldn't get into colleges. Because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was a person's world. So please stop using that phrase and talking about, because you don't understand what you're saying. You're saying about yourself that, you know, hey, that's a terrible thing to be. It's not a terrible thing to be. That's why we fought. That's what we were fighting for, so that you could stand in that podium, so that Catherine Jean-Pierre could stand at that podium. So women of all kinds of colors and ilks, wherever they came from, whatever their belief system was, they had the opportunity to bust down that door.
Could a quiet settlement be in the works? Or is Karoline Leavitt about to make media history? The answer's still unfolding. But one thing's clear. This case just cracked the surface. So, do you think Karoline is setting a new standard for how conservative women push back against media slander? Should The View face real consequences for what was said on live television? Let us know in the comments. We want all your takes. And if you're here for the stories the networks don't want told, hit that subscribe button. Because we're not just breaking headlines, we're exposing what's beneath them. Stay locked in. More heat is coming.